same time. So with that being said, David, I'd like to introduce the CEO of Harvest Against Hunger, David Bobanick. You're muted, David.
Muted.
There you go. I fixed it.
Okay, thanks. Rookie mistake. I've only been on 5 of these so far today. Thanks, Bill, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining this afternoon. I know we all have a lot of things going on in our lives, and there's been a lot of changes and disruptions, so I appreciate you taking a little bit of time to hear from me about Harvest Against Hunger and get a little more information about the organization and maybe ask some questions if you'd like. But my goal today is to talk not only about what we're doing, what we've been doing as an organization. I think you've all as delegates seen the information sheet that we provided. But also, since the work that we do is hunger relief, give you an update on things that are happening, because I know that a number of you are very interested and even actively engaged in hunger relief activities in your communities. And so really quickly, it's basically going to be a 2-part presentation. First part is going to be a real level set or snapshot about what's happening currently in the Hunger Relief Network, and then I'll go through probably fairly quickly slides that talk about the work that we traditionally have been doing here at Harvest Against Hunger. So we'll get started here. I think one of the things that is a real takeaway for us as an organization is we really try to do all of our work, and it is extensive, and it has grown over the past several years. We try to view it all through this lens of providing healthy food to people in need provides healthier, or builds healthier communities. And that's really important to us in a number of ways. What we want to do is try to figure out ways that we can support and build out healthy communities, which gets us beyond the task which we had been doing for many years of our core work today, which is providing truckload-sized donations of produce. We still do that. And I'm going to get into how much of that we've been doing lately. But we feel like with our unique perspective and series of relationships that we have with organizations, large and small, in the state, nationally, and even internationally, there's a lot more that we can do. And we've been actively engaged in trying to build out programs that help us to do that. So some of the key attributes, and this comes from our partner organizations. This was done, there was an assessment that was done about Harvest Against Hunger and our work. And these are attributes, and we're pretty proud of these, but we also recognize that these are attributes that align pretty well with Rotary and the work that Rotary does, and the work that we all do in Rotary. You think about the way that we are able to cross-pollinate through the various networks that we all have as Rotarians. We may not necessarily do the work hands-on ourselves, but we certainly are good at being collaborative, being efficient, being essential, being innovative, and then also being nimble. I think that those are some key points of the approach that we take and the way that we try to work with other organizations in trying to reduce hunger and food waste in our community. So that's a little bit of a level set about us as an organization. Now, I wanted to take a couple of minutes just to do a COVID-19 hunger response update. And so I've been going to volunteer for a couple hours at a number of different hunger relief organizations in the area because, well, one, volunteers are down dramatically in a number of places, but two, just to really get a sense of how they're doing. I mean, we don't necessarily have a day-to-day opportunity to connect with a lot of hunger relief organizations, particularly at the food bank and the local level. So we really do try to go and volunteer at least once a month as staff, and I've been volunteering at several places over the past week. Universally, everybody says that 50% of the services the past 2 weeks have been going to first-time visitors. And the devastation to the economy as it's come to a screeching halt, unprecedented screeching halt, has forced many people to go to hunger relief organizations to get food for themselves and their families. And many people are there for their first time. So really starting to stretch the need or the capacity of hunger relief organizations to be able to provide food. Again, volunteer numbers are down dramatically. Um, Statewide, we've been working with the National Guard and Red Cross to backfill some of the positions that have been left open. That continues, that work continues. Um, Red Cross volunteers are starting to come online. We've been encouraging Rotarians as they're comfortable, particularly younger Rotarians, Rotaractors, to try to go out and help at hunger relief organizations as well. I work with a number of different organizations statewide, so including the Washington State Department of Agriculture. There's a new food security coordination team that involves WSDA staff, the governor's office, Department of Health, emergency operations, folks from Food Lifeline, Northwest Harvest, and Second Harvest Inland Northwest to implement coordinated support around Washington State. What that looks like is that common meal boxes are being assembled and delivered. So for the past several years, hunger relief organizations have been trying to go to a shopping model where people can come in, choose what they want, get checked out, and then leave the food bank or the food pantry. And unfortunately, that model doesn't work when we're trying to follow social distancing protocols that have been established and continue to work. So the approach now is for common meal boxes to be assembled and then delivered to hunger relief organizations. And so that looks like about 15-pound boxes that have some common ingredients in them that will serve as a foundation or a base for the food that's going to be available at hunger relief organizations. What that looks like is that there's a county by county, basically the state of Washington has been broken down into 3 tranches of counties for coverage for emergency food relief. So Northwest Harvest takes 1/3 of the state. Second Harvest Inland Northwest, which is based in Spokane, works primarily in eastern Washington, takes the eastern 1/3 of the state. And then Food Lifeline takes primarily the western side of the state, although there's overlap with Northwest Harvest not overlap, but Northwest Harvest is working in Grays Harbor, South King County, Clark County, so they've got distribution networks that work pretty well there. Anyway, this is the approach that we're taking in Washington State to make sure that there's kind of a universal food box that's a baseline food box that's available to people that are coming into hunger relief organizations. And this is being built out on the fly. So lots of challenges. We have twice weekly calls to kind of go over what are the sticking points throughout the hunger relief network. This is the approach, however, that we're taking. And this is what a standard food box looks like. It's non-perishable items primarily. And then on top of that, we layer in some of the perishable product that we, in particular, Harvest Against Hunger, have been bringing in. So our current work is that as we were starting the call, I got a text to confirm we've got 17,000 surgical masks for food bank volunteers and staff that are going to be distributed statewide. And that is working with Northwest Harvest, Food Lifeline, Second Harvest Inland Northwest, and the Washington Food Coalition. Each of them has put some funding into purchasing these masks. And it's a partnership with a Seattle 4 Rotary member. The reason that we got involved in organizing and coordinating this is because the hunger relief system is basically the 3rd tier when it comes to emergency response, and so, or the emergency office. So what we heard a couple of weeks ago when hunger relief organizations were, screaming for face masks and other things that could keep their volunteers and staff safe, is that the state is going to focus, the state EOC is going to focus on hospitals, medical centers first as the first layer. Second layer is first responders, so obviously fire departments, police departments. And then the 3rd layer, as product would be available, goes to hunger relief organizations. And so it looked like when we were talking with the EOC folks, the emergency center, it was going to be about a month and a half before we were able to start getting any masks into the system. And so we decided to leverage Rotary connections, just like what we do, and we were able to get these in probably at least a month and a half earlier. So the first batch gets delivered to the office tomorrow. Second batch gets delivered in 2 more days, and we're going to have 17,000 masks going out across the state. Our enhanced core work, one of the things that we've been trying to do is reach out to other states to bring in some additional products. So we've got 9 loads of produce in the past week. Some of those have come in from Washington State. 6 have come in from California, where we have a partnership and a relationship with a program down in Los Angeles that has a lot of really terrific mixed loads that are available. And the challenge, I mean, the problem is, as restaurants in Los Angeles have shut down and other places where this product would normally go is not going out, so we have access to those. So we're also working to increase transportation assistance we're able to provide for our non-Harvest Against Hunger loads. So a load that originates, say, at a program in Cedro Woolley, we're able to move it to another organization down the road. I think on Wednesday morning, we're going to move 20 pallets of product from point A to point B. That's not product that we've gotten in. That just needed to get from point A to point B. So we're engaging our trucking partners to help us do that and to do it for free. And then our Harvest Vista are being repositioned to be able to provide direct service, both across Washington State and in 5 other states where we've got those Vista. Bill, I noticed that there are some questions coming up in the chat field. I can't read them. So if anything is, just interrupt me if somebody has a question and I can cover it.
Yeah, I've got no problems right now. I answered, Hebert asked a question, and I was able to go ahead and answer that by chatting back to him.
Great.
A little history would also kind of be nice too.
Yep.
We have some new members I know on board there watching. So.
Right. And so 2 more slides and we're going to get to the history.
Okay, cool.
But I thought, this stuff is all happening like within the next week or within the past week. So we're doing Farm to Food Pantry King County Farmers Share. We're working with our partners to fast track some additional contracts. So Farm to Food Pantry, WSDA is 40,000 additional funds. Same thing with King Conservation District and Puget Consumer Co-op, PCC Markets, is putting 70,000 in to help build a new program again. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Relaunching Capacity Grants and Food Banks Initiative, and expanding the role to connect with American Logistics Aid Network, FEMA Region 10 Planning, and Washington Trucking Association. Again, this is something that we're working on to bring additional partners into hunger relief. Some additional needs at food banks continue to be PPE, personal protective equipment, boxes, cleaning supplies, and refrigerated capacity. That's what we are hearing universally from food banks that we work with. Another thing that we wanted to do is we've created a COVID-19 resource page on our website. Just go to harvestagainsthunger.org. It's right at the top and easy to access. We try to update that daily, every morning, with the latest information about what's happening. So that's my contact information. That's the update about what we've been doing within the last week as an organization to mitigate some of the issues that are coming up with COVID-19. So now we're going to transition and switch gears to go into kind of a little bit more of what we do as an organization. So in Washington State, we've got 1.15 million. This was a month ago. 1.15 million people receiving services every year at hunger relief organizations. That's probably going to at least double by our estimates. This is going to be a really difficult year and challenging year. There's going to be a lot of services going out to hunger relief organizations. So lots of need at hunger relief organizations. And at the same time, we're seeing this is a traditional number where we see 40% of the food that's grown in the US that goes to waste. And that could be off the field, off the tree, out of the field, or through grocery stores, or all the way down to consumer level. So while you've got a high level of need across the state and a pretty high level of food waste potentially, we as an organization work to bring those 2 components together to get some of that excess produce that otherwise would have gone to waste into the hands of people in need through our hunger relief network. So in 1982, this organization started out like any Rotary project in the world, which is a Rotarian had a good idea and wanted to improve the world. And ours started out with a guy named Norm Hillis, who's with the University District Food Bank at the time, or excuse me, University District Rotary at the time. And he and his wife were volunteering at a food bank in the neighborhood, and they saw that there was no produce coming in. And so they really wanted to try to find ways to get produce into the hunger relief system. So Norm reached back out through his club and started an initiative called Operation First Harvest. And it was a grow a row program to begin with. They were collecting from people that were gardeners in the community and bringing it into food banks. The very next year, 1983, it went from being a club project to being a district project. At the time, it was Rotary District 503, not 5030. So 1983 was when we became a district project, and that meant that we had board members from a number of clubs around the district. Everybody involved in the program is a Rotarian. That continues to this day. But that's when we really started to combine the efforts and the networks, as importantly as anything else, of all Rotary clubs all across District 503, again, at the time. So from 1982 to actually, let me back up just a second. 1982 to 1997, we were Operation First Harvest. And then in 98, the name changed to Rotary First Harvest. And for about 20 years, we were Rotary First Harvest. And then recently, the name was changed to Harvest Against Hunger, to a program of Rotary District 5030 to reflect more broadly the work that we do as an organization. So fast forward to today, and by our estimates, I was running some numbers earlier today, about 235 million pounds of produce have come in to this program, or we've brought in, which 235 million pounds sounds like a crazy number. To put it in perspective, that's almost 500 million healthy servings. So if you think of that pear, is about a half pound. So that's a healthy serving. And so that's what we've been able, with the support of all the clubs in this Rotary district, to get out into hunger relief organizations all around the state. So as a Rotary organization, we connect and collaborate. I mean, that is, I talked a little bit about that at the beginning, about what our, what other organizations think of us. And so this is really part of the DNA, has been since day one. And I think it's the DNA of any Rotary project, anywhere in the world. It's all about connecting and collaborating. So sharing in the work and you know, using our networks to bring people together. So this happened today. This is Jack Wallace. Jack called me at 7:15 this morning. He had a load of purple potatoes that weren't selling. And you know, Jack is bringing them into his warehouse. He gets them packaged. He's got 3 lines that are running. One's the A grade, one's a B grade, and then the other is us, our grade. So he'll package these, or get them into 50-pound boxes. Give us a call when he's got some product available. Called me at 7 this morning. I made a couple of calls. This is to Ed Taylor at Taylor Driving School. They were there at 3 o'clock this afternoon to pick up the 40,000 pounds of potatoes, and they're delivering them at 10 a.m. They have a 10 a.m. dock time at our partners Northwest Harvest to get those potatoes into the food bank system, into the hunger relief system. So Lonnie is the guy that is working at Northwest Harvest. So we don't have warehouses, and we don't have trucks or transportation or anything else. What we do is we work with our partners to use those resources that are already in place and make them more effective and more efficient. So it's, you know, it's again, collaborating and sharing in the labor. The one time that we do as an organization actually touch the product is at our work parties. And I know that I see names here of people who have participated in those work parties. This is a real opportunity for us to bring people together from across Rotary District 5030. We've been averaging, you know, until most recently, we've been averaging about 100 to 120 people at our work parties. And that's people from clubs all across the district. So again, it's a way for us to, one, package the product to get it into the hunger relief system, but two, to create a space where we can cross-pollinate and share ideas as Rotarians, get to know one another. Maybe people that aren't in your club, and you're packing pears or apples or potatoes with those people and sharing ideas and sharing some information about the work that your club might be doing in your community. So things that we get in, you know, these pears are not saleable. So nobody's going to buy these. I think they're cool as anything, but nobody's going to buy them at the grocery store. So we give them a home in the hunger relief system. So when we get donations of really fresh product, small scale product, it used to be a real challenge for us because there are 30,000 growers across Washington state. A lot of them would like to donate their product, but a lot of them don't know how, or it's just not easy to do. And so we can't have relationships with 30,000 different growers. So what we have created is a Harvest Vista program, and it places AmeriCorps Vista. We started this 10 years ago to this year. Places AmeriCorps Vista at hunger relief organizations all across Washington state. We've worked with about 75 now hunger relief organizations to help them build models for connecting with growers and connecting with volunteers to get more of that local produce into food banks and into meal program and ultimately into the hands of people in need in their communities. So typically the Vista are recent college graduates. This is this past year's Vista cohort. And they're ambitious, bright, enthusiastic young people who really want to make a difference in the world. And what we've really come to appreciate is the fact that these young men and women go on to become leaders in their communities. So a number of them, like Lisa Harper, started Hope Link Harvest by herself. She continues to be a leader. She's with a nonprofit organization now. Ben Rasmus actually ran the Harvest Against Hunger program after being a Vista with us, and went on to graduate school and is now working in Washington, D.C. in a similar field. And so, you know, again, we see these young men and women becoming leaders, and that's been a real great attribute of this program, is connecting young people and getting them engaged and helping hunger relief activities all around the state of Washington and in other states. We started a program called Farm to Food Pantry. This is a partnership. One of the takeaways from one of our Harvest Vista projects was a lot of the small scale growers around the state are barely able to make ends meet. You know, it's really tough to be a small scale farmer. And so we went around the state. We had listening sessions in about 6 different parts of the state. At every one of those, the common thing that we heard was, I, as a farmer, really want to help, and I would love for my product to get into the food bank system. But sometimes I have to come into the hunger relief program myself at certain times of the year. So it's really challenging for people to do that. So we create a partnership with WSDA to identify funding that WSDA has for the small markets, that we can actually infuse some of that and get it into the pockets through lead agencies contracting with small scale growers around the state for Farm to Food Pantry. So this is in Walla Walla. This is Chandler in Walla Walla, and he works with Blue Mountain Action Council. These two are with Spring Grain Farm over on the peninsula. This is Dharma Ridge Farm. These are all really, you know, wonderful people that are enthusiastic about supporting their community that we've partnered with through Farm to Food Pantry. So some of the takeaways for this program, again, we have a unique role that we play as an organization. We engaged 86 farmers last year. 163 food pantries received produce from those farmers. 22 counties were served. 314,600 pounds that otherwise likely would have gone to waste or would not have been sold made it into the hunger relief system. And that's through a combination of purchasing and gleaning and donated product. The thing about purchasing, which is interesting, is we are able to put money into the pockets of those small scale farmers, but they match, for every pound that is sold, they match an additional 4 pounds that they donate. And we don't think those donations would happen as readily or as easily if it weren't for this initiative. Oh. So we recently created King County Farmers Share. This is Tommy at Clean Greens Farm in Carnation. And he's got a pretty small plot, but he's able to get funding. Again, this is funding that we get in through King Conservation District. It's a sister program of Farm to Food Pantry, and it helps to get farmers connected with hunger relief organizations. Yeah. Finally, what we've realized is as we're bringing more fresh produce into the hunger relief system, all the way at the far end of that hunger relief system, at the small scale food banks, they struggle to have refrigerated capacity to keep food safe and fresh. And so we partnered with a couple of funding organizations and a couple of other partners to do $500 rebate grants to hunger relief organizations so that they could go into the local community and purchase refrigerated systems that they needed. Sometimes it's a freezer, sometimes it's a refrigerator, sometimes it's replacing the compressor on an old refrigerator that they had, or a walk-in cooler that they had that was sitting not used because they didn't have the money to get it back up and running. So those grants have been really effective. I think we've put 70 grants into the hunger relief system in the last year and a half that way.
Cool.
Again, it ties in with the local fresh produce that we're getting in, as well as the truckload size donations of fresh produce that we're getting in. So that's been, I mean, sorry, that's rapid fire talking about all the different things that we do, both current urgent needs related to COVID-19, as well as some of the programs and kind of the overview of how we work as an organization and how being a district project allows us to do all of this work. And so at the end of the day, though, we always want to think about why we're doing this work in the first place. And it's because that today there will be people coming into food banks all around our communities who need a little bit of help getting produce or getting food on the table. So we do what we can with your help to find ways to support those local food banks that are taking care of people that are in a crisis in our community. So that's what we do. Again, providing healthy food to feed people, or to people in need, builds healthier communities. And as an organization, it's really important to us that we have the network of Rotary as a district program to be able to continue to do this work, because it really does open doors, and it really does help us to be an effective organization.
Thank you, David.
You bet.
It's a great thing. We do have a couple questions here that popped up.
Okay. I'm
going to start from the very top. I got one from Robin Rote from Lake Forest Park. Where do I order the t-shirt?
We're working on that, Robin. We're going to try to, that was something that we did a while back. We're going to try to get some more of those t-shirts in. Actually, we were hoping to work on that this spring, and then all heck broke loose with COVID-19. But probably in the next month or so, we should have another order of t-shirts in, and then we'll let everybody know, and we'll put something up on our website.
Okay, second question. By the way, can you unshare your screen for a moment, David?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Second question came from Frank Simmons from Mill Creek. Can you talk about how Rotary First Harvest?
I know.
Harvest Against Hunger. How does that work with maybe some of the smaller food banks? For instance, we have one in Mill Creek, which is very, very small.
Yeah.
Compared to the other ones. So how does that work?
So what we try to do is be as efficient as we can. So we know that, we know that Food Lifeline, Northwest Harvest, HopeLink, and other programs that's where food banks are picking up food, or they're getting deliveries from those organizations. And so rather than create this distribution network that would be parallel to all those other great distribution networks, we actually place a product in at those food bank warehouses, and then that gets picked up and built into what they're already delivering. Okay. So that's on the truckload size donation side. We find ways to partner with organizations directly with the capacity grants and with Farm to Food Pantry and King County Farmers Share as well. So we do, when it's appropriate and when it's not reinventing the wheel, we'll have programs where we're connecting directly with the local food banks. So as an example, for these masks that are going to be going out, they're going to be going out through both Food Lifeline and Northwest Harvest locally. So it may not even, food banks may not even necessarily know that they came through our work of putting all these connections together, but these are going to be going out to the small scale food banks all across our community.
Okay. And finally, the last question came from Tim Leahy from Bellevue Eastside. What's really the difference between Harvest Against Hunger and Northwest Harvest and Food Lifeline?
We're all three separate organizations. They are Food Lifeline and Northwest Harvest are both considerably bigger than us. I mean, we've got 4 staff people here. I look around the office, but I'm the only one here and have been for the last 2 weeks. We get the truckload size donations of produce into those organizations, and we find other ways to partner with them. So if you think about it, we're a little bit upstream of those organizations. And so we arrange for the produce and the trucking to get it to their food bank warehouses, and then they do the distribution. So
Okay.
separate entities, all separate nonprofit organizations. We just find ways to work with them.
I see Vicki Woolman's got her hand up. I'm going to allow her to talk. Vicki, why don't you go ahead and unmute you if you can. I'm allowing you to talk. Can you unmute yourself? She was there. The big V was there a second ago. Okay. Well, here she is down below. Hang on a second. She's trying to talk.
Okay.
Okay. So until we kind of figure out Vicki's question, I'm going to do a poll. We're using a different format than Zoom usually does. This is called a Zoom webinar, and it's a little bit more control. And so I didn't allow people to have their videos on, for instance, so you don't look like the Partridge Family. But it does polling, so I'm going to go ahead and launch poll, and then I have to share my screen to do this. And really what it is, it's that if you can see what the poll is, it's going to allow you to vote. So, and if you can go ahead and vote, that would be great. Do you want more information about Harvest Against Hunger, or do you want to have to be on their mailing list? You go ahead and launch that. And as we finish up the poll, I'll see if I can get Vicki over here to go ahead and unmute her.
Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted. Go ahead, Vicki.
Okay. A couple of questions. What about dairy products, or eggs and milk and that kind of thing?
Yeah, dairy products. When we've gotten offers of dairy product donations in the past, we'll try to help coordinate it, and then we'll move that over to the organization, because that, it's such a highly perishable product that it makes much more sense for us to shorten the window of response. We focus on produce as an organization, so we typically don't do eggs and dairy. We know, as a matter of fact, I was on a call this afternoon where we were talking about exactly the challenges that the dairy industry is facing with, the schools suddenly closed, all the schools closed, and they're selling a lot of their product into schools, and suddenly they don't have that distribution channel in place. And so the cows are going to keep producing milk, and so they're dumping it into silage, or they're dumping it into their manure ponds. The real challenge that we've had is that on a lot of hunger relief organizations, they don't have the capacity on the back end to be able to handle milk that would be in any sort of bulk quantity. Eggs and milk are both items that are available, and I'm sorry, I'm going to bear with me for a second. I'm going to go down a bit of a rabbit hole here. There's a program that's a USDA program called the Emergency Food Assistance Program. It replaced the old government commodities program several years back, many years back, where they will take USDA funding and they will essentially prop up soft markets. And so they've been purchasing milk from dairy farmers to get into the hunger relief system through the TFAP program. And so in Washington State for the past 2 years, I think we've been averaging probably about 3 to 4 truckloads of milk coming into the hunger relief system every month. They're trying to ramp that up, but one of the challenges is when you get to the far end of that hunger distribution network, you've got good capacity at Northwest Harvest and Food Lifeline, but the closer you get to where it's actually handed off to people that are coming in, the less capacity they have. And so one of the challenges is getting that capacity built up so they can handle increased donations directly from some of the dairy farmers.
Okay, thank you. And then one other question. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm working with our Mill Creek Food Bank here, and when I spoke with the director the other day, we talked about all the things they need, and so we went through it. Then I said, well, what about personal products? And I'm sure, you can't eat them, but things like diapers and Kotex and soap and this kind of thing. And so I've put out a plea to our club members and people in our community to think about that as well, and baby food and, you know, things like this.
That's a great idea.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, yeah, because it's needed.
Yeah, it's needed. And like I said, when I go in and have been volunteering at food banks,
Mhm.
you know, people are asking for all sorts of things, including
Yeah.
toilet paper, including shampoo, including soap. You know, we're being told to wash our hands many times a day, but if you don't have soap, then you know, it's not as effective. So any of those things that you can collect and get into food banks is a terrific thing to do at this point.
Thank you. And thank you for your work.
Of course.
Yep.
It's our work.
So that ends the first experiment for informational webinars at the district. It is kind of a new deal. We're going to have next week on David Endicott from Music for Life, which is a different nonprofit that specializes in bringing music back into the schools and supplying equipment, which is another district project, a project of ours. You'll be getting an email from me about your requests. That being said, I don't see other hands waved or anything going on right now. So thank you so much for joining us, and have yourself a great day, a great evening, and be safe. Wash your hands. Thank you very much, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.